Much more than just a series of small, isolated incidents, it's now apparent that an organized criminal element is at work. And at the moment, business is good.
Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Matt. I'm here with Andrew. Today we're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and their gritty 1990 live-action debut and discuss our favorite turtles, Aprils, and pizzas. So grab your popcorn and Reese's Pieces and let's break it down on the Post-Credit Podcast. Welcome to the movie that Andrew's been waiting and dying to get to.
Yeah.
And that movie is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The original live-action movie came out in 1990. Andrew's got his Turtles hoodie on.
Yes.
From the original cartoon. Mm-hmm. This movie was directed by Steve Barron. It was written...
No. Okay, wait. The movie was 99.9% directed by him because he got fired at the end.
Well, I did hear that they took over the editing from him.
Yeah, he got fired at the very end of this film,
which is sad because he did such a good job. It was written by Bobby Herbeck, obviously off of characters from Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who were the original comic creators that created these characters in the 1980s.
And I, with those two guys, like, you always think about it. You're like, okay, who's really the talented one here? It's kind of the same thing with like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, right? Like, where's the talent? Is it? A lot of people say, just to kind of quell everybody's inaction, but they'll say like, the writer and the artist are both combination of, greatness. You know what I mean? Just to kind of, where there might be some stories that you actually like, but the artist is not that great.
So what you're talking about is like the Chasing Amy thing.
Next.
Does that mean you ink it?
Well, it means that Holden draws the pictures in pencil, and then he gives it to me to go over in ink. Next.
So basically, you just trace.
It's not tracing, all right? I add depth and shading to give the image more definition. Only then does the drawing truly take shape.
No. You go over what he draws with a pen, all right? That's tracing.
But I mean, it was, I'm looking at these guys, it was Kevin Eastman who drew them.
Yes, I know that because I watched the documentary on the toys.
Right, yeah. There was a documentary on it, and it talked about how they were just kind of joking around. He just wrote Kevin Eastman drew a...
Well, they had tried to come up with a lot of different hits. They needed that one hit that would skyrocket them, and it was the joke that
they were
actually
joking around
the
at
hit.
first, and he's like, "Hey, it's a turtle with some nunchucks or something like that."
Yeah, now it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah, and then he gave it to Peter Laird, and he thought it was funny, so he made a little adjustment, and then they kind of went back and forth. And then one time, Kevin Eastman came back, and there was 4 of them, and they were all, differentiated by the different weapons they had.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just went to sleep. It was a joke.
They originally had all red.
Eventually when they got the comics going and everything. But I mean, it was they kind of just went to bed after that, and they're just like, okay, that was fun and everything, and not thinking much of it. And they woke up in the morning and looked at all the drawings and stuff they did, and they're like, maybe we should do something with this.
Yeah.
Maybe we should come up with a story.
They did.
They did come up with a story, and they were big fans of like this dark comic revolution that was going on in the late 70s, early 80s with people like Frank Miller, taking on Batman, taking on Daredevil, and I think it was probably Frank Miller's version of Daredevil that gave them their biggest inspiration.
Well, that's where the foot comes from. It comes from making fun of the hand in Daredevil.
So if people don't know, the Ninja Turtles isn't quite a spoof of Daredevil, but it is a ripoff of Daredevil, and it's a purposeful ripoff. Like a paying homage to it. So like you have the Ninja Turtles. They got turned into the Ninja Turtles by the ooze. Well, that's the same ooze that came off the truck and made Matt Murdock go blind.
What gave him immense power
and gave him the extra powers and everything. They have a mentor named Splinter, and Daredevil has a mentor named Stick. They fight. Daredevil fights a group called the Hand, especially if you've seen the Netflix show, you know that. And in the Ninja Turtles, it's the Foot. So I mean, it's an obvious ripoff. But
yeah.
It's a good ripoff for I guess kids, but it was never meant to be that way because these comics were just as gritty as like the Daredevil ones when they first came out. And yeah, like you said, the first one was black and white.
Yeah,
I think probably the first couple, but eventually as they started coming out with color, all 4 turtles had red bandanas.
Yes.
And they kind of look the same. Like if you look at the live action movie, each turtle head is unique and different than the other. So
they're supposed to be different turtles.
Brothers.
They're not supposed to be the same. Like in the newer ones, they're all Redditor turtles. You know what I mean? But originally was not.
Even though they said box turtles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that was how you
so clearly Redditor.
The way you would know in the comics was only through the word bubbles based on how they're talking or whatever, and their weapon. Because even their heads look the same. Even in the movie, like if you were to take the bandanas off in the movie, you would still be able to know who each one is because each head looked different and it was unique to that turtle. But tell us a little bit about the comics and what you know about how that started and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, you were correct in saying with the creators, they created this comic book, but the toys were far more superior, I guess. They were a lot bigger than even the comic book at the time, and really it's the
how much bigger, like they were in the new movies, where they're all jacked.
I mean, like the toys were a lot more popular than the cartoons or the comic books.
But I mean, they weren't too worried about getting it because they were even saying in the documentary, they're like, oh, okay, well, how can we, we can make this into a toy line. We can make this into a cartoons. And they wanted to sell the toys, so they made the cartoon. And so, I mean, they were all behind it.
Well, and then on top of that, Ninja Turtle toys throughout history is one of the probably most successful toy lines to ever exist. Ninja Turtles is up there. It revolutionized the way that toys were sold. And they went everywhere to try to find somebody to sponsor them. They had to go to overseas to get a manufacturer of some little doll that they had to talk to that manufacturer just to build these Ninja Turtle toys, basically.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because nobody wanted to build it here. And then
what was it, like
again,
Playmate toys?
Yeah,
was it
something
Playmate
like that.
Or something like that? Yeah, I mean, and this is during the 80s where the whole reason to have cartoons was to sell toys.
Yeah.
You had He-Man to sell toys. You had Ghostbusters.
Which
He-Man
He-Man did come right before this film, but it did really badly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why they were probably real fearful with this one.
Well, so Thunder... Oh, yeah, the movie. Yeah.
He-Man?
Yeah. But, I mean, there was, things like Thundercats and what else? Voltron, G.I. Joe, all these different types of
Transformers.
shows. My Little Pony, Rainbow Bright. I don't know what others there were. But, I mean, in the 90s, you had just a ton of cartoons. And you'd have toys with them and stuff. But, I mean... That was really because people love cartoons. It almost felt like the 80s was nothing but to sell toys, though. Because as successful as 80s cartoons were, that's just as successful as the toys were.
Yeah. Well, back in the day,
cartoons.
Back in the day, I had no clue there was a comic book for Ninja Turtles. I
thought it was
I thought it was
a cartoon first, and then movies.
And I didn't realize that's how things were created. A lot of things came from comic books. Sailor Moon. Dragon Ball Z, all this is, these are books before they became, put into cartoons, and, having that with the release of these type of toys and stuff, it was just game changer, what I mean? And so I thought, oh yeah, cool. We got this cartoon that I loved to this day. I still love. And then, we got toys to go along with it. Then this movie got released.
Yeah. This movie, as I said, it was directed by Steve Barron, written by Bobby Herbeck. Haven't heard much about him in all my research or whatever. Just kind of written and directed by Stephen Barron. He had done one or two small things, but mostly had done music videos before this. And I mean, like, he did artists like Prince, Madonna, a bunch of others, and like basically anybody who was popular in the 80s, he had done at least one or two of their videos. And if he had done the videos, they were usually the most popular tracks from that artist. You know, like Aha.
Yeah.
He directed Take On Me. You know, he directed what was it of Madonna's? I can't remember. It might have been. Oh, I don't know. I know he did Billie Jean. He did Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. He did Aha's Take On Me. So, I mean, that's just an example. He was like the premier, you know, MTV director, basically, you know, directing all the hits. And so he had enough confidence from the studio to do this. And, you know, they shopped this around to so many different places, and they just could not get any studio to take it. And it's just like you said, because a couple years before this, Masters of the Universe came out with Dolph Lundgren playing He-Man. And, you know, of course, that you know, there's the same thing. You know, they started.
That could have been so good, but it was just so bad.
Yeah.
Like when I watched it back then when I was a kid,
I like it. I still like it.
I like it, but you also look at it and you're like, this is bad.
It's bad. It's bad. It's bad from, like, I mean, what we know nowadays can be done. I mean, back then, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, there were better movies.
My cartoon come to life.
Yeah.
Was what made it great.
And it's not like it's Scarface or anything like, or Godfather or whatever. But I mean, there just wasn't movies like this nowadays. Nowadays, or back then, nowadays there's nerd culture movies out that have actually been done well. Mm-hmm. They're kind of few and far between because it is hard to get it right. But Masters of the Universe is one of those that, as kids, and it's probably only because of the nostalgia of watching it as kids, we're like, oh, this is He-Man, like the cartoon and everything, even though it was nothing like the cartoon. It was cool to see it, you know, and it was cool to see it when we were younger. Now I can enjoy it when I'm older, but I know a lot of people don't like it, and they're completely valid in what they say, because if I hadn't had that nostalgia, it wouldn't be as good. This movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, came out in 1990. It stars Judith Hoag as April O'Neil, Elias Koteas as Casey Jones, Josh Pies as Raphael, David Foreman as Leonardo, Brian Tachi as the voice of Leonardo, Leif Tilden as Donatello, Corey Feldman as the voice of Donatello, Michelin Sisti as Michaelangelo, Robbie Rist as the voice of Michaelangelo. And then we had Kevin Clash as the Splinter and puppet operator of Splinter. And then James Saito as the Shredder, and then David McCarran as the voice of Shredder.
And Josh Pace is the only one that actually did the voice and was the actor in the suit.
Right. If you guys know Tatsu, two different people there as well. Toshishiro Obata was the person who played Tatsu, but the voice was Michael McConoy.
Yeah, they didn't really do a super good job with dubbing that.
Syncing the dialogue and everything. Well, I mean, it's harder to do that than rubber puppets than actual person, you know, articulate.
Why would they have to,
It actually wasn't too bad, because he doesn't have that many speaking lines. All he says is, "Ninja, vanish."
And they couldn't, like, teach him this.
Whenever you get angry.
I mean, they couldn't really teach him, like, 2 words.
I mean, he just didn't have the voice. I mean, what if he sounded like Ninja Vanish? Then it wouldn't be like it's tough or whatever. Anyways, and then you know, we also got Jay Patterson and Michael Turney as the Penningtons, Charles and Danny respectively, and then Raymond Serra as Chief Stearns, and in his very first movie role, credited role. Speaking role, all that. Sam Rockwell, listed as the head thug, one of my favorite actors, perhaps on my top 10 list of favorite actors of all time. This would be his first role. Got any cigarettes? Well, regular or menthol? And he also is the one that said, hey, we're a family. You know, right before Casey says, you call this here and that down there a family? Anyways, so do you remember the first time you saw this movie?
Okay, I'm going to say this, and I've said this before. This is the first movie we went to the theater that we saw in the theater because it came out in 1990.
I remember seeing
right?
Turtles 2 in the theater.
We moved to South Texas in 1990. Okay, here's the thing: we didn't go to movie theaters when we were younger, like in Maine and stuff like that, because we weren't anywhere near a movie theater.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: we didn't do that until we moved down here. And so when we started going to movie theater, and this was the very first movie theater we went to, or the very first movie we went to at the movie theater.
Yeah, no, it just feels like a lie to me.
Well,
I'm just kidding. So I was what? I was a certain age, and you were a certain age.
I was 9.
So this movie, what did I want to say about this movie? What did you want to say about this movie?
Well, I love this movie. And my wife kind of came into it like, oh, I just seen one trailer. She'd never seen it before until yesterday when we watched it again. Like, we watched it ourselves for the 15th, 20th time, whatever.
Yeah.
This was my wife's first time watching it. And, she was already going in because she saw some bad footage or something on TV.
What she said she saw, and we kind of figured it out at the end, was the Turtles from Part 3, Turtles in Time.
Yes.
And, we all know
it's
how
a movie
those
we will
suits
not
look.
be talking about.
No. We're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles today, and the next week we're going to
I would rather
Part 2.
Talk
Return
about
of the
Karate
Yodas.
Kid 4 with Hilary Swank than hey, by the way,
The
did you hear
next
that
Karate
there's
Kid.
a chance that she might be on the next
Well,
season?
I think they had talked about it because there's been interviews with these
She's
guys
canon.
right before
She's canon.
season 4 where they talk about this is so what Cobra Kai is it's the Miyagi verse, and so they said anybody who's had any kind of interaction with Miyagi, that's who counts. That's why Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith,
even though
don't
Jaden
count.
Smith's dad is one of the executive producers of the
But
show.
I think that's just kind of a necessity thing because he was probably a producer on his son's movie.
And he
'cause
probably bought the
typically
rights
is.
to Karate Kid.
He either bought the rights or he has a certain amount of stake. So now that he's made a movie, whenever another movie's made, it's obligated that he's an executive producer as well or something like that. So,
Which is sad because, you would think that Ralph Macchio would get, Ralph Macchio and
I think they're the main ones.
Yeah.
Those two. They're Ralph
some money.
Macchio and
Mr. Miyagi.
Zabka. They took executive producer roles so they could have a say on the story and where it goes and everything. But
Which, again, I'll say it again, it's one of the best shows that I've seen in the last 20 years.
not only best show, it's not just a best reboot. It's not just this is the best reboot or 80s show that was brought. It's just one of the best shows.
Yeah.
You don't even need that qualifier of it being a.
But
it's just been one of the best
even
shows.
also one of those qualifiers that it's one of the best redone films because who would have thought you said, hey, let's surround the show and even name it after the villain of pretty much a lot of the films, the first and the third film. You know what I mean? It's literally like the villain. You know what I mean? Cobra Kai, whoever's ahead of it at that time, or pushing it.
And did you know they had the same fight choreographer in this movie as in Karate Kid? The first one, the guy, the judge in Karate Kid. I think we talked about this in our episode. The one with the mustache, and the red shirt. He was obviously the fight coordinator for that movie as well. And he was the fight coordinator in this movie. Yeah. And, of course, it doesn't hurt that the people in the suits that would occasionally weigh 50 pounds with the sweat.
Yeah.
Imagine doing all this stuff with an extra 50 pounds. But these were actually Hong Kong stuntmen that were doing the stunts. They had body actors who would be in the suits for the what they called the hero suits. And those were the heads that would be more expressive. For the chill moments when they're exposition, they're talking about it, they're moving the story along. The Turtles are interacting, having conversations, and being expressive and stuff. They had actual actors for that, but
except for Donatello, right?
No, Donatello Leaf Teldon was the actual hero actor. So he would be the one in the suit with the mask on and everything, and he'd be performing. But then when it would switch to fight scenes,
It was
the
Ernie
fight
Reyes,
scenes
right?
is whenever the the stunt guys would take over. So the people, you know, Donatello and Michelangelo, while they're waiting for pizza, and Michelangelo skateboards up or Donatello skateboards up to Michelangelo.
Hey, we got to clear that up.
I wanted to. I've been wanting to clear that up
this.
because I mean Donatello has been my favorite for so long, and I love it the fact that this part one shows. Now I don't know how it is in the comics, but in the OG live action movie, it was Donatello who was the skateboarder.
Yeah.
And ever since I think in the comics maybe it was different or something. You know, the later later cartoons made Michelangelo a skateboarder.
Right. In the newer ones, I mean, in the old ones, it was Michelangelo. In the cartoons, it was Michelangelo as well. Yeah, but
maybe it was both of them.
But in the newer ones, it's Michelangelo, but Donatello's the one that created it. You know what I mean? Like created that type of skateboard. You know, his thing was with the rockets on it or whatever.
Yeah,
you know, it's like
the silly rockets. Well, I think he put rockets on Michelangelo's skateboard, something like that. But anyway, so when they're having their conversation waiting for the pizza, that's two actors in a suit, actual like performance actors, not stunt actors, but performance actors, suit? Almost like miming or whatever. But they have to kind of get the right movements down and everything. But then when it was like switch to fight scene, then you'd have the stunt actor. So you had Leif Tilden playing Donatello in that scene where they're talking, but whenever Donatello was fighting, that was Ernie Reyes Jr.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, you know, they all had Hong Kong actors and stuff. Ernie Reyes Jr., for those that know, plays Kino in the next movie, so he actually gets a live action role after playing Donatello, a stunt performer, right? Basically. So I just thought it was kind of cool. I mean, that helped sell the action scenes, and you know, there's so much that could have gone wrong in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it would have had they not had Jim Henson.
Yeah. And
you know, Jim Henson, this was one of his very last projects he worked on. He finished this and then started work on The Witches with Angelica Houston, and it wasn't too long.
That movie, Witches, used to creep me out when I was a kid.
It was good, and the new Anne Hathaway thing. I tried watching like a couple minutes of it or something. It just looked terrible.
But the Angelica Houston one, they freaked me out. Those witches, when they would take their hair off
in that conference room when they had their meeting and stuff.
Out, man. When I was a kid, I remember watching it. I watched that in England. When I was in England, I watched that movie.
Yeah.
And bits and pieces of it, but I mean, I couldn't watch any more of it because it freaked me out.
It was they did such a good job on that.
Well, especially Jim Henson. You know, I mean, obviously he wasn't really happy with doing this job for the simple reason that, you know, he's not a violent person and he doesn't like to do violent things with his creations.
That's why he sticks with Muppets. You know, he is the man behind Sesame Street. He is the man behind the Muppet shows, and any type of animatronics and puppeteering that came after it. They can thank Jim Henson for that.
Yeah.
And you know,
from 1965 in for Sesame Street, you know, like,
and the Muppet Show.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like 60s, not 70s or 80s. I mean, we're talking 60s that he's been doing this since. You know, and the fact that he gets into the 90s and he creates something like, you know, Ninja Turtles is just phenomenal. And it blows me away too because I really I love this movie. I love Ninja Turtles. Since I was a kid, I mean, I loved Ninja Turtles when they first came out, the cartoon first came out. I started watching that as much as possible, and you know, Christmases, I remember, you know, parents giving us Ninja Turtles toys and things like that, you know, and we wanted all the, you know, the cool blimp, you know, because Pateras obviously had the cooler ones with the blimps and the cool toys,
sweet,
you know?
turtle toys, but we had other sweet like Thundercats and
sticks and rocks and stuff, you know.
We had some good stuff.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's an impossible task, right? Because you have something like the Ninja Turtles and you want it to be as close as you can. I mean, nowadays we have the CGI and the CGI turtles and they look horrifying. And I know you did like the design of them a little bit, but I just thought, I'm like, I get it. It's a different take on it. Fine, whatever. But I mean, back in this day, you couldn't do something like that. It had to be close to the original, or people would be like, "What is this?"
But it just makes more sense in the newer ones. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, I'm not throwing out the old ones at all. Like, those are my favorite. You know, they're my top 10. I mean, Ninja Turtles is in my top 10. I love the movie that much. But it's like, the newer ideas for the Turtles, the way they look, things like that, just makes more sense to me. I mean, now the creator Eastman and Lard, they originally, the Turtles were only like 5'5", 5'6", something like that.
Yeah.
Including in the cartoons. It wasn't until the movies,
and they were legitimate like
adaptations-
14-year-olds with Michelangelo being like 13 or something like that.
But to me, it's like if you've got some mutagen, right, which is what we call it here in Turtle World, but we got the mutagen, and the mutagen, it turns, animals into humanoid animals. I mean, and do you think it would really stop there? That much chemicals and being able to do that? I mean, I would think that the turtles would get bigger and larger, and
apparently
the
it
animals
makes sunflowers bigger too.
Yeah,
as we saw in part 2.
Right. But I mean, like if you read any of the comic books, which I love turtle comic books. I mean, right now I'm reading The Last Ronin.
Turtle Power.
I don't want to talk about it more until the second one.
Yeah, we need to get more into The Last Ronin.
Yeah, The Last Ronin was just fun. It's a phenomenal series. If you have not read it, or
then we won't
you
spoil
love the Turtles,
who The
go watch
Last
it.
Ronin is. Too.
Yeah, but it's just the take on it. The turtle that's in The Last Ronin is just so massive, and April literally will be like, you're just so much bigger than the last time I saw you.
They're mutants, and we've only seen them as teenagers. But this comic takes it past that, and it goes, oh well, actually, they keep growing past teenagers, and they grow and they grow and they get massive and massive.
Yeah, and they're like they're like 800 pounds, fully yoked.
5'5" in the comics and in this show, because they're all shorter than like Casey and April. Well, I think Leo and Raph are maybe a bit taller.
But I mean, regardless, like you would think that with the newer ones, they're so much larger. They're literally part of their costume is just trash. Like because they live in the sewer, right?
And so it's. I mean, it's not like it's nonsensical or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Now, how Splinter and the Turtles learn martial arts is a bit silly in the newer ones compared to what the comic book actually stated was where, like Splinter in the comic books was a ninja instructor / master, whatever. Right. Then the mutagen mutated him into a rat.
Right.
That's not the original story.
But I like the one that's in here now, because if the turtles just became bigger turtles, then it would make sense. If they were turtles, it would make sense for them to just be regular teenagers before, just like Splinter. So,
well, you're talking about the original ones, right?
I'm talking about this story. I like this storyline where they were all animals first, and they became bigger, smarter animals.
That's how the creators wrote this. Okay. This is the original ones is how they became turtles originally. Gotcha. That's exactly how it happened. He Splinter. His master, he just mimicked his master, and then his master was killed and whatnot, so that's original storyline right there.
Yeah.
And then so Splinter got into the ooze with the turtles and everything else like that, and then bada boom, bada bing.
Bada boom, bada bing. When this was released...
Bing bong.
Bing bong, bing bong. No, but Jim Henson, they did an amazing job, made the turtles look great.
Phenomenal.
Yes, you do know that it's an animatronic when you're watching it. The way the story goes,
but as a kid, you just kind of fall into it,
Well, and that's what I was about to say. The way the story goes and the way it's performed and the way it's shown, you get lost in it. Every once in a while you go, okay, you'll see the mouth not match up with the words. But it almost becomes you're looking at their eyes instead of their mouth, or you're looking at the whole scene together instead of trying to watch the mouth to see if it matches up, unless you're actually literally trying to do that. Then it's just like anything else. I mean, you're not staring at everybody else's in a normal movie.
You're not watching like
a
popcorn eater. You know what I mean? You're not a popcorn eater.
You get lost in it. They do a really good job. Now, in the later movies, yes, it's terrible. Jim Henson wasn't involved.
Yeah.
And it kind of went downhill. And those
plastic and
costumes
more plastic
just look terrible from being degraded over the years. Now that it's like a horror show.
Yeah. But you know what's bad about it too is that this movie, there were so many complaints. Even April complained. The actress that played April complained that it was too violent. Jim Henson complained that it was too violent. And you watch it now and you're like, really? Like I could watch stuff on Disney Channel that's a lot more violent than that was. You know,
But
right
I mean,
now,
maybe
you know
they
what I
wouldn't.
mean?
But maybe there wouldn't actually be weapons hitting each other, like the showing weapons hitting each other. You
Well,
know?
Leo don't even take his sword out in the second.
In the second one, he doesn't take his swords out, and Raphael doesn't use his sayas because they're stabbing and slicing weapons. You know, nunchucks weren't even really used that much. You know, like he uses sausages instead of nunchucks.
I know.
You know, Leonardo used sticks instead of his swords.
I still love
Raphael
that
just used his fists instead of his sayas. You know, so it's I don't know. It's maybe just about the extra violence of using a weapon instead of a fist or something. But yeah, in the cartoon, they had to get around that a lot and not show as much violence and everything. But that's why they turned the foot soldiers into robots, because there was like a rule on TV where you couldn't show them hurting other people or striking other people, but things were fine and robots were things. So they just, you know, but I think that there were robots in the comics too, weren't they?
Yeah.
For a certain time or something like that. I can't remember. I just swore I remember them being robots for a little bit in the comic. I don't know if it was the whole time or not.
Oh wait, you're talking about the foot soldiers?
Foot
No,
Clan.
they weren't in there until really this TV series.
So in the cartoon show, it was all just robots as the Foot Clan. So which makes it less Krang.
Krang was a whatever. He was a robot technically too. You know.
Yeah. So this is when it came out. It was the second highest grossing kids movie of 1990, behind, of course, Home Alone.
Yep.
And it was the most successful. It was number 5 of most. Of highest grossing movie of the entire year. Home Alone being the first, and then 3 others before it, and then Ninja Turtles. But I mean, those 3 others were like Dances with Wolves and something else. But I mean, like high caliber movies at the top 5 that this Ninja Turtles movie was in. It only had a $13 million budget and made over $200 million back. I think it was over $250 million in returns and stuff, and it was a $13 million budget. So it shows that sometimes you get a better movie.
I think it
when
made
you
something
have
like
less
$31
money.
million. I mean,
No, worldwide it made over 200 something
Was it
million
200?
dollars. Yeah,
Okay.
and that was only a $13 million budget. But then you saw more money was thrown at it after that. You know,
For part
so
2.
and I bet all these studios are kicking themselves. Although you know, it understands they didn't want to take the risk with Masters of the Universe. But then, of course, the studio that has been taking risks since it started, New Line Cinema with Freddy
the
and
house
everything.
that Freddy built.
They took the risk on it, not to produce it, but they distributed it.
Yeah.
And it was Golden Harvest, actually, that produced it. Golden Harvest obviously did a lot of Jackie Chan movies, a lot of Bruce Lee movies, a lot of the Hong Kong American films.
Ninjas.
And I was like, I don't know. Do you remember the names of the 3 ninjas?
Rocky, Tum Tum, and Colt.
There you go. Good job. Who was the oldest? Who was the middle? Who was the
Rocky
youngest?
was the oldest, and Colt was the middle,
Yep.
and then Tum Tum was the youngest.
Colt just had a bad attitude problem.
Yeah, he did.
He was a little punk, but I liked him the best. And
Hit him in the eyes, boys! Hit him in the eyes!
Hit him in the eyes! No, so she was working with Robin Williams on this other movie, Judith Hogue, and she was just like, she was like, yeah. He's like, well, what do you work? Why do you always leave in set? You know, I got this other job. And he's like, well, what's it called? And she was like really embarrassed to talk about it because I mean she wasn't used to it, and it was a comics thing, it was a cartoon thing. And so she was just kind of like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, just like real embarrassed about it. And like apparently he was just like, oh my gosh, you know, just blew up because he was a huge Ninja Turtles fan. And so like he gave her a crash course. And I don't know if he gave her comics because I know she didn't even come in till issue 2.
Yeah.
But he gave her like a crash course in comics, maybe cartoons or whatever, of the Ninja Turtles, April's character, and all that characterization behind it. So I thought it was pretty cool. We had like a little Robin Williams connection to how,
because he was a big comic book collector, and you know,
was he a comic book?
Yes, he was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he actually did have the collection, you know, and you know, he big fan of Ninja Turtles, you know, so he knew everything about that, and he helped her actually with her role, I believe.
Who's your favorite portrayal of April O'Neil?
Might kick me on this one, but I'd have to say Megan Fox. Her personality reminds me just so much more of an April type. Like
What
she's
is
more
wrong with you?
because the original April wasn't as much of a of
you
kind
could have
of
even said the
a
comic
read.
book version before
No.
Megan Fox, and like not
Can't
even
really
an
consider
actor.
that,
Yeah, I consider
a
lines
live
and ink
action.
on a piece of paper better than Megan Fox's acting.
I liked it just because she seemed more of a bulldog type, personality. Like the second one was kind of like, whatever. The first one was a little bit of a bulldog, type personality, but Megan Fox was a smart one about it.
I'll just say my semi-personal favorite is Paige Turco. So the one from part 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. But this one to me is obviously the best. I think Judith Hoag. She's a redhead. She's fiery. She's got the attitude, but she can be sweet and everything, and caring. I just think she did such a great job. Paige Turco, I just like because, I have fun watching Secret of the Ooze.
Well,
even though this is the better movie,
I've got to say, probably the April O'Neil in The Last Ronin. Then I'm gonna have to say that then if we're going all the way through.
Okay,
I like that one. Again, I like Megan Fox's personality in this. I mean, just as far as April, I mean, she's not one to just kind of take anybody's crap, and she's kind of more involved in it. You know what I mean? And
whenever she comes on screen, it makes me want to skip the scene.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's just me. She was actually, Judith Hoag, unfortunately, was asked not to return to the next one after this because, basically due to her own personal complaining. She was complaining about the 6-day work schedule and the amount of violence in the movie, so they said, you know what, we don't want to deal with this in the next movie. So apparently there was enough consternation that they didn't want to
so
have
are we
her
talking
back.
about the original Karen here then?
I guess.
Because, I mean, think about it. It's like you had to have been complaining so much that they went out of their way to find a brand new April for a box office hit of a movie, the sequel to it, which probably did pretty darn close to the original, as far as how much money it made. But it's like it you had to be pretty bad if they really did not want to bring you on to the second one.
It's pretty bad.
I mean, pretty bad.
So, she got her revenge playing that bit part in Armageddon, and not much else after that.
Okay. I suppose.
Maybe she should have come back for
Yeah.
this. Although they did go downhill after that. Maybe she made the good call.
So when we start with this movie, it kind of, when I was watching it yesterday, right, in the beginning of it.
As a crime wave arises in New York
Yeah.
City, reporter April O'Neil correctly theorizes that the mysterious Ninja Foot Clan is behind the rising chaos.
Yes. Now, my question is why can't we have a moving company called, like, The Ninjas, right? Like, because that guy's truck emptied out extremely fast, and I want to hire a moving company that moves that
it
fast.
felt like that it was almost just one wall of empty boxes and
Yeah.
nothing behind it.
Yeah. But, I mean...
Probably what happened because of movie
Right. But I mean,
No, but yeah,
if there
you're
were some
right.
movers like to move your house.
I
it'd be
remember
like,
even
you look
thinking-
in there, it's gone. You look back, then it's gone.
I remember even having enough sense of time and what it takes to move that amount of stuff at such a young age when I first watched this to know, okay, this is weird. Well, that was a little too quick. I mean, ninjas are ninjas, but heavy ass boxes in a moving truck or heavy ass boxes in a moving truck with only one exit.
Right.
So, I don't know.
And do we establish that was Danny the one that took the TV, or was it somebody else?
No, I think it was somebody
that
else
poor
because then
lady's TV.
you look down and it was somebody else running off.
Because these guys were quick. I mean, like the lady looked back through her window, looked at her TV. Her TV was being jacked at the same point. And by the time she stood up to look over the railing, he was already like half a mile away.
Danny did help bring some stuff to the van, but I don't think you ever saw him taking it. The only thing you actually saw him take was he pickpocketed a wallet.
Yeah.
There at the beginning, but
Well, and he stole money from April as well.
yeah. So anyway, she's doing this, and it's funny because she gets attacked by the foot in this first scene. But then later on, when she's reporting on it again, it feels like it's the first time Shredder's watching it, because then he throws a knife at the TV and he's like, "Find her,
Yeah.
silence her," and it's like, Didn't you already try that at the very, very beginning? Because we didn't see him order that.
Yeah.
But obviously the foot was there on his orders.
Well,
so it was almost like he's like, try again because the first time didn't go so well.
Well, I think a lot of it too was you could tell that that's probably not the first time that she's brought it up, like with the police chief, that she's actually been dealing with this with the foot for a while now. And I feel like maybe he had seen prior reports where she was doing the same thing, like talking about the foot. So finally, probably after the third time, fourth time, whatever, that's when I think he felt like where we were at in the movie, where he said, "Find her, silence her."
So then we hear this, and then we see Asaya hit the light, and then we hear Michaelangelo go, "Whoa!" After they're all, you hear some Power Ranger sound effects, right?
Correct.
The sound of them flipping and stuff.
That sound.
Anyways, they knock out the foot. They save April. And do you think the turtles were stalking her?
Well,
because how would they have been there?
Well,
in time?
Because they know about her. Like they talk about her on the TV a lot. You know what I mean? So I think in a way, because. Again, this goes back to my theory of that she had been dealing with the foot for a while now.
But I think
before the movie
Splinter sent
took
them.
place.
Because in the first movie, they weren't supposed to. And Splinter got mad at him for doing that. But in this one, they came back, and he's like, we just had our first battle. And, Splinter was just like, were you seen? All this kind of stuff. And he was backing them. He was like, okay, this is what you've been trained by. But it feels like to me that they maybe watch, obviously they watch her news reports. So it seems like maybe Splinter was like, after he saw the news report, he's like, why don't you go watch this chick because she might get attacked. It seems like they would attack her for something like that, exposing them. But anyway, so we see that Ralph loses. Ralph. That's
Ralphie.
That's the regular age version of Raphael. Regular age, modern age, whatever. Raphael.
Ralphie.
So now Raphael is down one weapon, and he's so upset about it. And this is great because this opens up with a gritty city, and then you have the nighttime, and she's going out this very dangerous looking alleyway with behind the news station. She gets saved. They're in this gritty, nasty looking sewer. And everything just looks so great. It doesn't look polished by a studio. It's an independent film, so it looks great. It's in the dark. So, yeah, the animatronics or the not-so-real-looking stuff can be masked by the darkness.
Yeah.
And that's what a little bit of the mistake they made in the subsequent movies is that, everything was more bright and polished.
Yeah.
And you could see kind of, okay, I could see animatronic eyes moving and stuff. But they get back and, they have a realistic-looking layer there. But then we add in a little bit of the humor, for those people that are coming over from the cartoon. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, he's trying to give this big lesson, and you got Michaelangelo in the back over here, ordering pizza.
Yeah.
No anchovies. If you put anchovies on this thing, that whole scene. So they get their pizza. Splinter tells him basically, look, one day I might not be here.
We should so be eating pizza now.
I know we should. We should be eating a big fat Domino's or Pizza Hut, I guess. Yeah.
Either one.
Nobody wants
probably
pizza. But you don't like Domino's either.
No, I love Domino's.
Oh, do you like? No, it's Papa John's you don't like.
Yes.
That's right.
So I don't like it.
Calling out the companies. So, anyways, he tells him might not be around. Not Raphael. Michelangelo and Donatello have a conversation about it later. You could tell Donatello's a thinker. He's like, "Hey, did you ever think about what Splinter said?"
How you doing?
Hi.
Nice night.
Mm-hmm. Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Mikey, did you ever think about what Splinter said tonight? I mean, about what it would be like. Not having him.
Time's up. $3 off.
Even Leonardo's not, maybe he's quietly contemplating it, but obviously you got the personalities. Raphael doesn't want to hear it. He leaves to go see a movie. Leonardo's kind of in by himself, but he's probably contemplating it by himself because he likes to self-meditate and everything. That's who Leonardo is. Donatello's asking those questions because Donatello's a thinker, and Michelangelo's ignoring it because it's too much to think about. You know, it's too heavy. He doesn't want to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
Because Donatello's like, you ever think about what Splinter said, you know, about him not being around? And Michelangelo just goes, time's up. Pizza's, you know, $3 off or whatever, however much it is. You know, he doesn't even want to think about it. So Raphael goes to a movie. He sees the critters and as a tongue-in-cheek thing, you know, probably talking about themselves. He's like, where did they come up with this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably a line of many parents who took their kids to see that movie, you know, like, where did they come up with this stuff?
Well, and that's what was it? He was supposed to say something else about the Batman film because the Batman film was already out.
Was he seeing Critters or Critters 3?
I don't know. But all I know is he was supposed to say something about the, what was it, bad suit or what was it?
Oh, what? Just talking about Batman because it came out in the same. Well, Batman came out in '89.
He said cool car, bad suit or something. Or oh man, that's gonna tick me off. What was it that was said? Know. It was supposed to be what Raphael was supposed to say when he left the movie.
I can't remember. I don't know, but I know Critters 3 was probably what this was supposed to be because it was 1991 is when that came out, and that was Leonardo DiCaprio. So Raphael was probably watching a young Leonardo DiCaprio in his first movie.
Oh, and this was the last theatrical film that Jim Henson was associated with.
Well, he was in The Witches too.
Oh,
yeah, because I saw that, and then somebody else said that it was The Witches. So
okay.
Anyway, so he goes to see the movie, and then he sees somebody getting mugged, and he stops him, and that's where he meets Casey Jones.
How about a 5-minute game misconduct for roughing, pal?
Hey, Bogey, now who died and made you referee? You did your job, now get out of here and let me do mine. These JV lowlifes need to be taught a lesson.
Not like that, they don't. Not from you.
It looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is paying 101. Your instructor's Casey Jones.
Look, I don't want to fight you.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
A Jose Canseco bat? Tell me, you didn't pay money for this.
Do you like the fight between them? Do you think that Casey Jones should have gotten the upper hand like he did, considering he's kind of a brawler and Raphael's been trained for the last 15 years?
I mean, I took martial arts quite a bit, you know, when I was younger and stuff, and you know, any martial artist is going to tell you, and they're going to straight up tell you that, you know, a street fighter could come off the street and whoop on a martial artist for the simple fact that there's no rules. For
it's we talked about in the Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid episodes where 9 times out of 10 Johnny's going to win a street fight, and 9 times out of 10 Daniel's going to win a competition fight.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of the same situation here, you know, Raphael. But the only thing that didn't make a whole lot of sense is Raphael was like twice the size of Casey Jones.
No, he was. I know he was bigger. It was the biggest turtle, but I think he was about the same size as. I mean, obviously he was bulkier. Yeah. He was much more muscled.
New game, Roundhead. Cricket.
Cricket? Nobody understands cricket. You gotta know what a crumpet is to understand cricket.
I'll teach you.
Slow, freak. I got work to do.
Freak! Freak!
But anyways, they go at it a little bit, and kind of Casey kind of hands Raphael his ass a little bit, and takes off running, and he calls him a freak, and Raphael gets even more pissed.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like Raphael probably could have handled that anyways, just in the simple form or reason that he's just built bigger.
Yeah,
than Casey Jones.
But as we've seen Raphael go off on his own a few times in comics, cartoons, movies, and
he's like the lone wolf, and he
never ends up doing too well.
No,
he ends up like he'll do pretty good against, you know, the usual threat or whatever, but against certain special people, whether it's Shredder, whether it's Casey Jones, whether it's, you know, a mini boss or whatever. He ends up getting his butt handed to him. And then if you see in this film, when it's just the 3 of them and Raphael's out of commission, they don't do too well either.
Yeah.
The Turtles were trained by Splinter to work together. They're supposed to work together as a team, and they're never as strong as they are when it's all 4 of them fighting together.
Which is weird because, like,
that's
if you
why
think
Raphael
of ninjas,
throws him off whenever he takes off.
Right. if you think of ninjas, like, because in the third one, they're samurais, which samurais and ninjas are two different things.
Very much so.
You know, but they didn't really like separate them. Like, I imagine them to be more like samurais than ninjas in a way. You know what I mean? Just because, like,
yeah, but they do in the
fought,
first.
Ninjas fought alone a lot. You know, it wasn't something that you hang
I
up.
thought they were always in groups, and you know they were always. I don't know.
You must read different ninja books on it.
Well, you're reading the Ninja Turtle books, and maybe I'm reading real ninja books. I don't know. No,
So
I'm not reading any ninja book.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it could be. I just think that they're better together. Raphael gets his butt handed to him again here in this scene, and it's not going to be the first time that he gets his butt handed to him in this movie. He takes off. April decides that she's going to keep reporting on the foot to the annoyance of the police chief because he's trying to address the situation, but he doesn't want to start a panic.
Well, he's trying to just basically put it on the back burner, even though it's a situation right in his face.
He's not taking a lot of it seriously, but I think he is trying to do some things. But he also doesn't want a lot of people knowing that there's some kind of a ninja group out there attacking people, because then people will be in fear all the time. But she's a reporter, so she's trying to report the truth. So she reports it again. This is when you see Shredder say, "Find her and silence her." She gets attacked in the train station, and that's where Raphael goes and meets with her, saves her from the Donatello guy, and takes her back to their little lair. He gets followed by a Foot Clan member, and so now the Foot knows where the Turtles' lair is. While he goes back to go tell the rest of the Foot that she gets to know the Turtles, and she gets to hear the whole story. She thinks she's dreaming at first. She accepts it. She accepts it pretty good after that, though. Yeah. I mean, she does do a good minute or two of freaking out, but
I think her reaction is the best reaction out of all the. Well, I mean, we only get like 2 reactions here.
Why can't I ever dream of Harrison Ford?
Which is so ironic to hear that now.
Yeah,
it's like. Well, I mean, I guess they're around the same age anyways.
But I mean, Harrison Ford, he was a stud back then in the 90s,
True.
So
yeah, you had the odds for him, I think.
Something like that. Yeah. I'm sure I did. Yeah. But so she's attacked and knocked unconscious. Raphael brings her back. Splinter explains to April about their history, that he was once, a rat in Japan, and he came over here with his master, and somebody attacked, and it ended up being Shredder. When he was off by himself, he got into the sewer with a bunch of sticky, nasty green substance with these turtles that he found in the sewer. They all got manipulated by it, mutated by it, and turned into what they are today. So they take April home, and they joke around with her and have some good time, have some pizza with her. Go back to their lair, and it's been ransacked. It's been destroyed. Raphael freaks out, because he needs that guiding force to help him with his anger and everything. So, and obviously that's how Raphael's going to freak out. So they go back to April's apartment and was like, we don't have anywhere else to go. And I like this because it's almost like they need babysitters.
Yeah.
They can't go back to their home, obviously, because the Foot's there. They can't go find another place in the sewer. They can't formulate a plan because
they're literally, truly teenagers.
They're teenagers. They're lost. They don't know what to do. They're sitting there playing board games at the farmhouse. They're sitting in April's apartment eating pork rinds and joking about this or that, not going out and doing anything. Because Leonardo said he wants them to form a plan, but also they're kind of just like they need some time to recover. They're kids. In a normal story, they'd be like, all right, let's go after these. And then you see like a montage of them flipping towards the Foot's hideout or whatever to go fight them and everything. But, this is a true movie where they're just like, they're devastated. They don't know what to do. They're just teenagers that their dad, he may be dead. Their home got ransacked.
Well, if you look at every iteration of the Ninja Turtles, it's always the same thing, though. They're all, they're all teenagers. They need to have somebody to guide them. Whether it be their master, whether it be April, whether it be, Casey Jones later on, whoever, they need somebody else to guide them. Leonardo's can be a leader, but it's like pretty much they just get their assignments from Splinter, and then that's where they go and do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so this happens, and devastated. They're not self-starters and not working on their own. They're just kids. So I thought that was pretty good. You know, they don't know what to do. You know, Donatello and Michelangelo, they're just going to hang out until, you know, Michelangelo or Raphael and Leonardo do something.
Yeah.
Or make a plan or something. But meanwhile, the chief who's mad at April calls
her boss.
Her boss, which is Charles Pennington. And Danny, her son, or Charles's son, he works for the Foot, and he's been caught doing some illegal stuff. And basically, the chief is like, "Look, I'll let him go if you can if you can rein in your reporter here and get her to stop reporting on this, so I can take care of it. If not, this guy's going to stay in jail." So completely, I mean, this police chief needs to be fired, right? Yeah, abuse of power and all that kind of stuff. But so anyways, Charles and Danny go there and Charles is telling April she needs to stop reporting. Danny sees one of the turtles, goes and tells Shredder about it. You know, not really thinking, but just wanting to build his way up in the whole, you know, what is it called? The clan or the group or whatever. Yeah. So Raphael gets in an argument with Leonardo. And he's like, you know, screw you, I'm out of here, I don't need you. And he goes up to the roof, April's roof. And this is my favorite part.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'll ask you that in a bit. But this is my favorite part of the movie. It's Raphael up on the roof. Casey Jones, I think when we were watching it, I was like, what are the chances that Casey Jones is going to be that close to April's building, his building? But then you did make the point. Well, they bumped into each other earlier when he went to go see the movie. Raphael did. So Raphael, Casey, and April all live kind of in the same vicinity. Yeah. And that's why they're always running into each other, I guess. But it's just a really cool scene with him looking out on the city, the shot from the back of the head where, you know, you kind of got the dull city background. The green is not too pronounced, but you got this real bright red bandana just kind of flapping in the wind. And, you know, it represents all the turtles because they all used to have red bandanas, too. So, you know, that could be any turtle just sitting up there looking down on New York. I just thought it was a really great shot. I think the director definitely has a good eye for things. But then you start to see, as Casey starts to see, a group of foot soldiers behind him slowly coming towards him. And then we have a scene where April gets home, is talking to them. The rest of the turtles is like, hey, do you want me to give you a tour of the antique shop downstairs? Yeah. They go downstairs. They're talking. It goes back and forth between, you know, her telling them about her shop and everything, and then Raphael just getting his ass handed to him.
I mean, did nobody notice going up the elevator a bunch of ninjas? Because
they must have gone on fire escapes or something.
But, I mean, you know, that doesn't look obvious either. You see, you know, a matter of what, like 25 guys, probably 30 at most, you know, a bunch of
secret of the ninjas. We'll never know because we don't know the art of ninjutsu, the art of invisibility.
But it was still light outside. Like, you could see a bunch of ninjas in black crawling up the fire escapes.
Well,
I mean, that's not weird.
Obviously, you can't.
I think somebody would have said something. I'd be like, 911, yes, I'd like to report a bunch of ninjas crawling up this building for whatever reason. I do not know. But they are a bunch of ninjas.
Hey, there's probably multiple elevators, multiple staircases. Maybe they just took a different staircase.
But then you get Granny going up in an elevator filled with a bunch of ninjas.
Yeah, I'd like to see that scene and just checking their watches as they're going up. Big group.
Shut it. I mean, I get it at nighttime, right? I get it at nighttime. They probably could sneak in that building. Nobody would see them. But in the middle of the day, somebody's going to either see a bunch of ninjas riding up in the elevator, a bunch of ninjas going up on the stairs, or a bunch of ninjas crawling up the fire
Or
steps.
Maybe they'd have their masks.
Of ninjas.
Maybe they have their masks off when they're going up, so then it just looks like they're in a tight jumpsuit. Maybe they're just exercising. Yeah. And it's not until like the elevator goes ding, and they quickly all put on their masks and go out and fight.
Got duffel bags on their backs, you know, changing into their ninja uniform every time.
Well, no, they just hold their masks or something.
Because I mean, what if one of the Ninja Turtles stepped outside for a quick smoke break, right? And then all of a sudden you see a bunch of half-naked ninjas getting dressed in their ninja gear.
No, they would be wearing everything but their mask.
Like under clothes?
Yes, because remember, that used to probably be what like bicyclists looked like back then. I don't know.
True.
So, anyways, he's taken from the comic books, although it was Leonardo in the comics. Raphael is beaten to a pulp and thrown through a skylight and falls into April's apartment, where they all jump in and they all have this fight, and it's cool. Michaelangelo has like a little chuck off with a fellow chucker, and who was the guy you were talking about earlier, I think.
Yeah, he
the
was
fellow
the
Chucker.
stuntman for
Oh,
most
fellow
of the
Chucker, eh?
Foot Clan.
So they have a big old fight, and the music's great, and even the fun music versus the cool music.
Yeah.
Tatsu is there, and he's just not doing anything. That dude's useless. He doesn't fight anybody.
Yep.
The only people he fight is the kid that he beat up.
I
know what you mean.
I think right when Casey Jones shows up, and even the tone of the music changes, it's less playful. It's less, jokey. I mean, you do have a couple jokes in there, with Casey and Donatello, I believe it was. But you have some jokes there. But
them making fun of each other,
Yeah.
them fixing that truck, that's straight from the comics too.
Right. But what I'm saying is even that was more of a serious tone than the rest of the film. Right when Casey shows up in April's apartment is right when the tone of the film changes, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have to start taking things more seriously. I think what happened was the first time Splinter got taken, and they were just completely thrown off, not knowing what to do. Other storytelling would tell you then they're at their lowest at that point, right? Then starts their slow climb back up to, being on top again.
But I feel like
they've hit rock bottom. But this was like, not only did they get knocked down because of Splinter, now they got their asses kicked here. Raphael's in a coma. They have to run from the city, not just their home. They have to run from the city. So it feels like they should have made a comeback then. But they got their asses handed to them even more, and now they're out one of their brothers. So yeah, it is a darker way. But I think their response to how when Splinter was taken by running and hiding and not doing anything, to now this happening, they ran, but then they decided, okay, instead of just hiding, we're going to try to do something. We're going to regroup. Leonardo's like, I'm going to try to reach out to Splinter, whatever, try to meditate about something. And they actually started to try to do something about it. So I agree. I mean, this is when it really starts to get serious.
I think when Splinter goes kidnapped, gets his rat butt kidnapped, I feel like
dirty rat,
you killed my brother. No, but I feel like at that point they're more in shock about it. Like they're just in shock because they've never been at this point. They've never been without Splinter. They've never really had, they've been in little tussles here and there and stuff, but I mean, nothing as serious as what's happening right then, and I think they were more in shock. And then, April is like slowly basically April is there to keep them together and keep them from falling apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when Raph gets hurt and Casey shows up, that's when I feel like the tone just changed to seriousness, and they're like, look, okay, we got to snap out of this. We got to figure something out, or else we're going to die.
Is April's family rich or something? Because she owns the antique shop.
Yeah.
She's a news reporter, an anchor, which they make pretty good money, or usually they do, like an on-TV live anchor. And she's got this house up in Massachusetts, this farm, actually this whole entire farm up in Massachusetts. Is her family? Why did she? Did she ever go up to that farm? So why wouldn't she have sold that and got a better apartment or something like that in New York?
Well, and none of this stuff. I mean, back in the day, I'm sure that a lot of people owned stuff like that. And it was just common sense. Nowadays,
maybe afterwards,
everybody's consolidated everything. You know what I mean?
Maybe afterwards she sells the farm and the antique shop so that they can, have cool turtle stuff like the turtle van and everything.
Who knows?
So while all this has been going on, Danny's been kind of taking counsel from Splinter, and talking with him at the bad guy's base and everything.
The bad guy.
Raphael slowly recovers and eventually wakes up. Then they start training again, and they decide, okay, we need to do something about this. And when Splinter was taken, they just sat around eating snacks in April's apartment and didn't know what to do. Now they got their asses handed to them again, and it almost cost one of their lives. Now they got to do something about this. Yeah. So they start training again, and mainly it's to get Raphael back up to full strength, or as close as they can get him before they go, because they need Raphael strong again.
Yeah.
April and Casey, they're like falling in love and doing their little thing out there, flirting and all that. And so basically Splinter tells Danny all about his love and all that kind of stuff, and the Turtles return to the city. Danny's actually staying in the Turtles' old little lair place in the sewer. And as soon as they come back, they see that he's been there. They kind of connect a little bit, and Danny realizes that he's kind of on the wrong side of it.
This guy knows where Splinter is.
Yeah. And that what he's been doing is wrong. And it helps that Splinter says, you know, when he's like, my dad doesn't care about me, and Splinter's like, I doubt that. All fathers care for their sons.
Yeah.
Which obviously, that's not true.
Yeah.
But fathers who call themselves fathers care for their sons.
Or consider themselves
You
father,
know.
at least, yeah.
So, so anyways, Danny goes back to meet with Splinter again, and the Shredder catches him there and finds a piece of paper because while they're at the farmhouse, April was drawing the turtles.
Yeah.
And she drew Leonardo, she drew Donatello, and
Casey.
Maybe the other two, Casey, whatever. But Danny asked to have one of those when they were together in the lair, and so he put one of them in his pocket. But for some reason, he still doesn't tell the turtles, hey, by the way, I know where Splinter is.
This guy knows where Splinter is.
I mean, I don't know. It seems like he had turned at that point, right?
Yeah.
He didn't want anything to do with him anymore. I mean, it wasn't until the next time he went and he pulled his bandana off when the Shredder found out.
Yeah.
But I just feel like at that point, he should have probably been like, look, guys, I know I've done wrong. I've messed up, but I can take you to Splinter right now.
Yeah.
This guy knows where Splinter is.
It would have been much better than that brawl in the street. You know, the Turtles wouldn't have been able to find some kind of a secret way to get in and just beat everybody up.
That final scene was at Sesame Street
on
one of the rooftops.
It actually did look like a lot like Sesame Street. You know, the big old stairs leading up to the houses and stuff like that. Yeah.
Literally was done on Sesame Street.
So he goes back to Splinter, and Splinter finds that drawing of Leonardo, and he's like, "They're back!" And so he just mobilizes everybody, and it's like, everybody go to where their lair is in the sewer, which is in the same block area as the now burned down April apartment and Casey's apartment or whatever. Casey actually sees Danny going and follows him and finds Splinter there as well.
Right.
And him and Danny are in charge of saving Splinter, so they have to fight Tatsu.
We're family. Family? You see what you said? Family? You call this here and that down there family?
You know, I know you never had family before, but this isn't what a family does and stuff. So they have their big, while they're doing that, the foot all go to the Turtles, and you got like the second best scene of the movie, which is an all-out brawl. This basically from the time that, Casey follows him back, and I mean, it's just this all-out brawl that stretches from the sewer, or from the lair to the rest of the sewers, and then it goes up on the street, and then it goes up onto a building. I mean, they just fight all over the place, and I feel like the action set pieces of nowadays, it's all just like contained in this one spot or whatever. They never really get a chance to kind of, evolve and go this place and that place and really draw it out and not just have it be one action scene, but, have it be a whole third act of an action scene, of something going on.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Turtles are doing a pretty good job. 4 against 100?
Yeah.
Something like that. They're doing actually a pretty good job because they're all working together now.
Right.
Hey, dudes, where you going? Hey, Donnie, looks like this one's suffering from shell shock.
Too derivative.
Boy, I guess we can really shell it out.
Too cliche.
Well, it was a shell of a good hit.
I like it. Step up.
Awesome!
So anyways, they're all joking around and having a good time, and then they get to the top of the roof and they beat all the foot, right?
Yeah.
But then who drops down? The Shredder, right? As soon as he drops down, it's them fighting. If you notice, all the bodies of the foot soldiers are gone. It's like they disappeared. And then it's just a clear place for for Splinter and the Turtles to fight. Whereas a few seconds before that, I was noticing it last night, there was a bunch of bodies of the Foot Clan.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it was just like one part of the building and then they just turned around to another part or whatever, but it looked like it was the same pace, but suddenly all the bodies were gone.
Well, and I think this is the first iteration that we get of Shredder that he actually uses martial arts, because I read somewhere that I don't believe he uses martial arts in any other movie he's ever been in.
Well, in the new one, he does. I mean, like in the new one, well, the thing I hate about the newer ones is that their names should have been Teenage Mutant Turtles. There's no ninja about them. Like, I get it. There are scenes of them with their weapons, and they do have fight scenes, ninja fight scenes or whatever.
Well, when they're younger, you get a lot more martial arts than when
yeah,
they're
maybe.
older.
And you do see a bit of it as they're older. But, I mean, mainly it's just, I like that first scene where you have turtles literally picking up cargo containers and tossing them like they're nothing.
But see, I like that, though.
I hate that
like
because it makes it about the strength. It makes it about the monster instead of the art of ninjutsu.
Right.
You know, the art of martial arts of the ninja. And that's what the newer ones were missing that this had, is you had real performers doing some badass choreography with real Hong Kong stuntmen. And it just looks so much better than just monsters like hulking out. It's just, there's no art. There's no skill to this. It's just, I'm really strong and I can toss people around. That's what Raphael was in the new ones.
You got a lot of that with Splinter in the newer ones. You know, you saw a lot more martial arts out of Splinter than you had before. I mean, because one was a puppet before and the other one was CGI, but... with Tony Shalhoub's version.
That's right. I was never looking for martial arts from Splinter when I was younger.
But I mean, he's the one. He's the original gangster.
But he's not teenage. He's not old mutant ninja rat. He's
he
just
is,
yeah. But I mean, he's Splinter. But I mean, when you have a title, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I want to see some ninja moves. I want to see a martial arts art form that ninjas use.
Well, you get
not
that.
just being, I'm going to throw this thing. I'm so tough.
I like it because I feel like that mutagen. I mean, it's turning animals into humanoids.
And I get the comics,
and it's like
I get the
growing.
comics explanation for it. Why they keep getting bigger, and that's cool that they explain that. But with these movies and stuff, I mean, they didn't explain it. You had these massive, gigantic things that were still 14 and 15 years old. I don't know.
No,
I guess it's a preference thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But so they actually stick to. Well, I mean, first they take them one-on-one, and he schools all of them, and then they try to go at them together, and they still get schooled. They're okay. Now we're meeting with somebody from old school. Old school Japan martial arts, and this isn't somebody that we can just fight. We're just teenagers. We're good, but we're not that good. So he tells them that he killed Splinter.
This guy knows where Splinter is.
Makes them put down their weapons, or he's going to kill Leonardo, which they do. One of Michelangelo's nunchucks go over and hook onto a railing, and
we get the reason we get Shredder there is because Daniel and Casey Jones. Well, Daniel brings Casey Jones to Splinter's aid so they can release him, and then they show up basically at the building because they're pretty much at a stalemate right now. I mean, Shredder's just kind of having a good old time.
I don't think it's even a stalemate. He's just playing with his food. He could kill these guys at any time. I think.
I agree, especially in the second one. But in this one, you do hear Mikey seem to go a lot longer than some of the other turtles.
Yeah, when they did the one-on-one thing at first, it was Leonardo went first. And Raphael went first, and he got tooled pretty quickly. Leonardo just dived.
I mean,
he just dove and he just got knocked down, so he didn't do anything. And Donatello, Michelangelo do rock paper scissors. Steve gets to go first, and it's Michelangelo who gets to go first. But then when he goes, it flashes down to the street where Casey Jones, Danny, and they had brought Splinter, but he's disappeared now, and all the rest of the Foot are down there. I say the rest of the Foot, the rest of the teenagers who are trying to be part of the Foot, the delinquents or whatever. And they're kind of seeing that the turtles, they're just seeing bodies everywhere of the Foot. They just got messed up and everything. So, where was I going with this? While they're doing that, you hear Michelangelо up there going, making all his funny fighting noises. Raphael lasted 2 seconds. Leonardo lasted 1 second. Michaelangelo was going off all this time. Now that was probably just a movie thing they're putting in effects because afterwards they're all huddled together and they're breathing heavy, and you never even got to hear Donatello fight. But it looks like he had been fighting, so it looks like that. But Michelangelo seemed to put up the longest fight towards Shredder, so I don't know. Maybe that's a nunchuck thing because Splinter ends up using the nunchucks at the end. But he's about to kill him, and he's about to kill Leonardo first, and then Splinter shows up.
Splinter!
Yes, Uroku Saki. I know who you are. We met many years ago in the home of my master, Homato Yoshi.
It's him.
Now I will finish what I began with your ear.
The nunchucks around, wrap him around the spear, and toss him over the side.
Somehow, a frail rat is able to one-handedly, mind you,
toss him over,
swing
and then hold
over
him.
nunchucks. I mean, that's some good judo because judo's all about that using their weight against them
and the momentum against them and everything.
But he literally flipped
like
Shredder. He flipped Shredder,
and then he held him
into the dump truck down
where this Shredder probably without all his armor, maybe like 170, something like that,
maybe
170, maybe 180. And then with that gear, with all his costume and all that metal that's there, maybe another 20 pounds or something like that. Yeah, so I mean,
assisted murder with Casey Jones.
Yeah, well, first of all, he's trying to talk to the Shredder.
We learned that this is not the death of Shredder.
Yeah, but first of all, you have Splinter trying to talk to Shredder. He's like,
death comes for us all, Uroku Saki. But something much worse comes for you. For when you die, it will... without honor. Oops!
Yeah, then Casey straight up murders.
Anybody would have died.
Before A Secret of the Ooze, you would have died from the fall.
Shredder would have been
if you didn't land just perfectly on the trash inside that trash can.
You would have been squished.
Even then, you probably would have had some internal bleeding,
and squished with the dump truck, and then end up in the dump.
Yeah, and before A Secret of the Ooze, let's face it, Casey Jones straight up murdered the Shredder. Yes, we know he comes back in the second movie, but before that movie happened,
Shredder murdered people too.
Before they knew that they didn't know they were going to make a sequel to this, he straight up murdered him, and the Turtles, along with everybody else, just looked the other way.
That's probably why
cheer Casey on for making out with.
That's probably why that director got
fired.
Oh yeah, he got fired. The guy that Raphael came out and said he was on a podcast, and he came out and said he said like the last week of filming, the director got fired because the movie was too dark.
Oh, because I know that
I'm like, how do you get darker than Casey Jones murdering somebody?
Yeah, they did say that the editing was taken over from him. Yeah, which you would assume
he got straight up fired.
That means he got fired.
PCO or what's his name that played Raph?
Josh Pice.
Yeah, he's the one that said it on the podcast. So
interesting. Well, he murders Shredder, and then he, for his reward for murdering Shredder, he gets to make out with that. That must turn April on because she wanted not much to do with him before that. Then he murdered somebody, and she's like, "Oh, hello there, come here." She's so used to violence.
Yeah, he murdered him until the melodies of Vanilla Ice brought him back to life.
Well, I don't think it was much before we got to Vanilla Ice, but maybe he heard
Vanilla Ice on the radio.
Maybe Vanilla Ice was in town.
Brought him back to life. It
Yo,
healed his
it's
wounds.
A green machine. Gonna rock the town without being seen.
Better. I'm already feeling better.
Have you ever seen the turtle get down?
Get down. I already feel better. I can feel healthier.
But that's not to the next movie. In this movie, we have TURTLE power.
Turtle power.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I never used to know what they were spelling when I was younger. Obviously, it's obvious. But the way that the voice did it was like E-U-R-E-R-E. And that's just sounded like they were just making noise to me when I was younger. And it wasn't until I was older I was like, oh, they're actually spelling something. That song.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about?
we're going to talk about the next one next week, but this film, it was just so much. Again, it was darker. It was a lot better, I think, cast in a way. I mean, it's a lot of the same people, right? Besides April, but it just the whole core of the characters. It seemed a lot more real, even though they're gigantic turtles. But it felt more grittier, more
as
real
as
more
a movie
darker.
about
Right, where
Mutant Turtles. Can be.
Every movie, preceding it, not preceding it. That's not where I'm looking. Yeah, preceding it.
You mean after it?
Yeah.
Subsequent to it.
Subsequent to it. Every movie subsequent to it got lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
Including the newer ones.
And
Got a lot more lighter, a lot more
studio
playful.
is so mad. They should have kept the same
Yeah.
director. They would have stayed pretty good, I
Yeah.
imagine. He probably could have gotten some pretty dark stuff after that.
But I mean, we'll talk about it in the next week.
But I understand it because nowadays, you have that wall of innocence is shattered now, and you got kids exposed to adult things at a much younger age nowadays than
video
back
games
in the day.
and everything.
I'd like to say we were a little bit tougher back in the day, but we were also, there was still a wall of censorship for kids and everything. So I get that they want, kids that we want it to be more for kids. Whereas nowadays it's like, well, you can make it kids, but you can make it still a little grown up because kids are more mature nowadays than they used to be. Not really true, but they're just doing more adult stuff when they're younger, which actually makes them worse adults when they get older.
Correct.
In my opinion. But I mean, you had that wall of censorship, so I understand the studios getting in there and being like, look, we need to make this is a kid's property. This is a kid's IP. We need to make this for kids. But
the cartoon
in
was a kid's
retrospect,
property, but it really was not a kid's property originally.
I mean, it was. Though. I mean, all comics are for the younger generation, anyways.
well,
I mean, that's what it's
now.
supposed to be. So I get that, but I mean, you looking back on it now, it worked better to have it. Have the jokes in there every once, but mainly have a dark, gritty edge, and then take it, film it like that, and then shave off what you can to make it okay for kids. Where like, okay, that'll be okay. Whereas you're not making a kids movie, you're making a Turtles movie, and then doing what you can to, take off maybe a little bit here and there just to make it a kids movie. That would be okay.
Yeah.
But just going full on, okay, we're going to be jokes all around. It's going to be bright. It's going to be light. It did a disservice to it,
Yeah, I mean,
even though I have more fun watching Secret of the Ooze, like I know that this is such a good movie, and I wouldn't even say Secret of the Ooze not necessarily my favorite. I really, really like this first one. It's just that I tend to have more fun. I like Kino. I like Toka and Razor, even though they should have been Bebop and Rocksteady. Stuff like that.
Well, the second one was a lot more. There's a lot more martial arts. There's a lot more fighting that you actually got to see
because they couldn't use their weapons.
Right. But like in the first one, just like with the Shredder scene, you got to see a couple of them go after him, like Raphael and Leonardo go after Shredder, but then you don't get to see much after that until like the very end. There wasn't a lot of real fighting martial arts. Like the second one just starts off, with Ernie Reyes, just whooping some butt and. A lot of the turtles, just really fighting in it. You know what I mean? I felt like you didn't get to see a lot of the turtles.
Well, and there was never any serious fights.
Yeah.
The closest, there was never any serious fights. They were all fights that had quipping and playfulness and even playful music. Whereas in the first one, you had some serious fights with some dramatic sounding music. And if they had come into the first movie like they did with Secret of the Ooze, where it was all playful and silly, that's how the audience would have taken it. It would have been cheesy and corny.
Yeah.
But they actually made it serious with high stakes in the first one so that they could come back in the second one. It's like, okay, well, we don't necessarily have to be dark here because we've already seen them be playful every once in a while. and yeah, we got to get it to more kids. So they made them more. It's more about, all right, let's have more fight scenes where they're playing with their food.
I think we're opposite ends
How
of
so?
this one because you were talking about how it was a lot more serious fights on the first one than there was in the second one, right?
Yeah, because there was fights in the first one where there wasn't quipping, and it was like and it was real serious music. It was real serious fights. Them in the burning building when Casey showed up, and the music got serious, and they really seriously started to fight. In the second one, I don't remember one fight that didn't have some kind of playful music, playful quips,
when
fun atmosphere
Ernie
to the
Reyes
fight.
was fighting other foot.
Yeah, it still had a playful air to it. You know, him and Raphael were joking around. Like, when did he actually fight somebody? It was like
Get the bells,
It was
remember?
like a 5-second fight scene before he got the bells. You know, he was whooping up on somebody for 5 seconds. They're like, "Wow, he's really good. Let's see if you can do this." And then he did the bells, but that wasn't fighting. You know,
Well, that was Raphael too. So.
and it was Raphael's who got the bells anyway. So I mean, there was not one fight where it wasn't playfulness. You know, the mall at the very beginning of part 2.
I don't know. I liked it better though. In the second
warehouse and the Vanilla Ice concert in the second, in the second one. I just and then the TGRI, that was fun and playful. So there was never like a serious scene when it came to fighting or whatever in the first one. So I think it was just a matter of, well, they couldn't be serious because they know that the turtles quit.
Toodles.
And so they needed to keep that going or whatever. And then they just kind of lost the plot in part 3. For part 2 next week, I think I'm going to do a lot of research on part 3 too, and try to find out why or whose idea it was to make the turtles go back in time. I don't know if there was a comic plot or if there was ever a TV show episode plot where they went back in time that they tried to take from. I mean, it's unique, I guess. Well, there was a lot of stories going back in time, though, back in the 90s, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like, after the Back to the Future craze, it's like, no, we should go visit different, points in time or whatever. Hey, real quick, I was going to ask you to do this beforehand, but I wanted to kind of get your off the cuff. Rank the 4 turtles your favorite.
Oh, that's easy. Probably
That's why I didn't tell you.
Michelangelo, Raphael,
Number 1 is Raphael,
Donatello, and then Leonardo.
So in that order, Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello, and Leonardo.
Correct.
Okay. Mine's almost opposite. Well, no, mine's a little mixed up. My number 1 is Donatello. My number 2 is Leonardo. My number 3 is Michelangelo. My number 4 is Raphael. When I was younger, Raphael was my favorite. He's actually now my least favorite because I think we've gotten because since then we've gotten so many characters where you have the broody one that has the attitude problem and he's always angry. In the Justice League, that's Batman. Raphael is Batman.
Yeah,
and even in the new movies,
comic books with the Ninja Turtles and Batman.
Yeah, and even in the new movies, they're like, oh, he's using his Batman voice.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But there's a Cracked. Cracked After Hours, that web show I showed you. By the way, if you get a chance, it's the best web show out there about movies and about pop culture, and making weird assumptions and big leaps, theories and everything. It's such a great show. It's from Cracked, and it's called Cracked After Hours. Go look it up on YouTube. There's 4 hosts. They're great. But they do this thing where they separate all 4 of the turtles into the 4 humors. So you have the red, which is representative of blood, and that is basically the hot-headed person.
Yeah.
The passionate person, right? You have phlegm, which is the smart, more pragmatic person who thinks out loud and all that kind of stuff. You have the person who's more about honor and responsibility and everything like that. And that's supposed to be bile, and then you have urine, which is like the more funny one. Like the 4 different types of body liquids or whatever. But I mean, it relates to the 4 different types of humors, 4 different personalities that are in these groups and have been in storytelling. So your passionate person would be Raphael. Your pragmatic person would be Donatello. Your honor-bound person who has a sense of duty is Leonardo. And your funny, light-hearted person
Shaggy.
who's just is Michelangelo. So it has it for Sex in the City. You know, for the Scooby-Doo gang, it's Daphne is like Raphael. You got Velma is Donatello. You got who's the main guy in Scooby-Doo?
John.
Fred.
Let's call him John.
Fred is Leonardo,
Fred,
and obviously Shaggy and Scooby are the other one. In Seinfeld, you got Elaine as like the Raphael. You got George as like the Donatello. Jerry as the Leonardo, and Kramer as the Michaelangelo. Yeah. The Fantastic Four, you have Ben Grimm the Thing as Raphael. You got Susan Storm as Donatello, which I think these two should be switched. Susan Storm as Donatello and Leonardo as Mr. Fantastic. I think those two should be straight. And then Johnny the Human Torch as the funny one. Yeah. Right? And then in the Beatles they talked about the Beatles. You got John Lennon as the Raphael character, you know, the passionate one or whatever. You got the pragmatic one, which is George Harrison. Which is like the Donatello character. You got more the leader, the honor-bound one, which is Paul McCartney. And then you got the funny one, which is Ringo Starr. So, I mean, it's kind of cool how they laid it all out, and how in every type of storytelling, when you have a trope or troupe of 4 different main characters, they usually get categorized in those categories. They even does Sex in the City. I don't know these names well enough to say them out loud. But Sarah Jessica Parker is the Donatello, if that means anything. No. The dark-haired one is the Leonardo. The blonde is the Michaelangelo, and the redhead is obviously Raphael. Okay. So, whatever. Whoever knows Sex in the City, that's how they organize those. But if you get a chance, go watch the Cracked episode where they talk about the Ninja Turtles. Just put Cracked After Hours Ninja Turtles. You'll see what it is. And it's a great show, but I thought that was a really cool thing to bring up, because it does have those with the 4 different personalities. And if you were a kid in the 80s and 90s, you put yourself in one of those personalities. It's kind of like Ghostbusters too. You know, you have those 4 different personalities in the Ghostbusters. Definitely. Venkman, weirdly enough, probably would be like the Michelangelo. I mean, don't you think? He's always quipping.
I think. Yeah. Bill Murray's character, and then
I think
Donatello's obviously.
Venkman, or I mean, who's the one from the the newest movie? Harold Ramis' character.
Egon, yeah.
Yeah, Spangler. He would be Donatello, of course. Yeah. You know, Ray would probably be Leonardo, like the leader person. Yeah. And then you have Winston as the Raphael person, you know. So it's interesting how the 4 different personalities always play out like that.
I think Ray would be more the Raphael, and then Ernie Hudson.
Ray was all, but I mean,
Leonardo.
Leonardo was more about like the honor bound. He wasn't. I mean, Ray wasn't very passionate. Winston was passionate. Remember? True. You know, and you know, he was the one to go tell somebody to, you know, go suck an egg or something. Yeah. You know, so I don't know.
I haven't tried that yet, but I've eaten eggs, not something.
But I bet you could go back to all different type of literature, and when you have groups of 4 like this, you could probably shuffle them into all those different types of humors, personalities, or whatever. All right, well, stupid question, but did you enjoy this movie?
Obviously, absolutely, 100%.
Do you have any favorites to ask me? What's your favorite pizza? Place to get pizza of all time? And it doesn't have to. I'm talking about main chains, because we could talk about local chains in New York or whatever. People know who we're talking. But out of all the main chains, you'd say Costco is your favorite?
Yes. I love Costco pizza.
I can't choose between Domino's and Papa John's.
Well, for me, if like a main chain, it would be Domino's.
Yeah.
I love Domino's.
I think Domino's is just great. But anyways, any other things to ask? I'm sure we can come up with it in a second Ninja Turtles.
We got another one coming.
All right, well, stick with us, and we'll be talking about Ninja Turtles Part 2, Secret of the Ooze, next week. And if you guys want to get a hold of us, we're on all social media at The Post Credit Podcast, except for Twitter. We're at The Post Credit. Our email address is thepostcreditpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website. It's www.thepostcreditpodcast.com, and we're on YouTube. Sorry about the wait. Sorry we've been out for so long. We were enjoying the holidays, but we hope you guys have a good week, a good rest of the month, and we'll see you next time.